The vast high desert plains of Arizona stretched endlessly beneath the fading glow of the evening sun. Golden light washed over the red stone mesas, casting long shadows across the Hartley Ranch, a quiet, weather-worn piece of land owned by Cole Hartley, a middle-aged rancher who had spent most of his life surrounded by cattle, dust, and silence. Cole wasn't always a man of few words. Years ago, he had been known for his easy laugh and warm conversations at the local diner. But life has a way of sanding people down. After losing his parents, suffering a painful separation, and watching most of his old friends drift away to cities and new towns, Cole gradually folded into himself. It became easier to tend the ranch alone. No drama, no heartache, no expectations, and eventually, no women. He hadn't spoken to one in years. The nearest neighbor lived 20 miles away. The nearest town felt even farther. Days blended into one another. Sunrise, feed the cattle, mend the fences, check the water lines, ride the south pasture, fix whatever broke, cook a simple supper, sleep, repeat. Silence wrapped around him like a second skin. The ranch didn't ask for conversation, just hard work and endurance. That was enough for him. Or so he believed. On one late November evening, when the desert's cold came fast and the wind carried a sharp bite, Cole was finishing chores near the barn. The sky had darkened more quickly than usual, its purple edge glowing faintly behind the mesas. A dust storm earlier had left everything coated in a thin layer of grainy earth. Cole brushed it off his jacket, preparing to head inside for the night. Then he heard it, a sound that didn't belong to the desert. Knocking. Not the slow creaking of wood or the shifting of the wind, but distinct, urgent knocking on the ranch's front gate. Cole froze, pitchfork still in hand. Nobody visited him without calling ahead. In fact, nobody visited him at all. Another set of rapid knocks came, sharper this time. Cole felt an old instinct stir, alertness, caution. Living alone in remote country taught a man to listen, to observe before acting. The Hartley Ranch wasn't exactly in the middle of danger, but solitude itself demanded vigilance. Out here, help was a long way off. He placed the pitchfork against the barn wall and reached for the revolver holstered on his hip, not to threaten, but to be prepared. Slowly, he walked toward the ranch house, boots crunching over the frost-bitten ground. When he rounded the porch, he saw silhouettes, 3 of them. 3 women. They stood clustered near the gate, wrapped in worn shawls and travel-torn clothing. Even through the dim light, he could tell they were exhausted. One leaned heavily against the wooden post, another held a younger woman by the arm, steadying her. Cole's heartbeat quickened, not from fear but from sheer disbelief. Women. 3 of them. At his gate. This was something his daily silence had never prepared him for. Keeping a respectful distance, he called out, "Evenin'. You lost out here." The eldest-looking woman stepped forward, lifting her chin despite the tremble in her legs. "Please," she said, voice strained. "We need shelter. Just for tonight." Her accent carried the rhythmic softness of the Apache tongue, and her words were careful, respectful. Cole blinked. Apache. His ranch bordered old tribal lands, but it was rare for anyone, much less 3 women, to wander this deep into ranch territory. Most people avoided long stretches of open desert at night, especially in winter. The woman continued, "We've come a long way. Someone has been following us." Even in the half-light, Cole saw fear flash across her face. Not simple worry, real fear, the kind that dug deep into the bones. The second woman, younger and with fiercely determined eyes, added, "We wouldn't have stopped if we weren't desperate. We saw your light from the ridge." Cole lowered his revolver, not pointing it, just easing his hand away from it. "All right," he said cautiously. "Gates open." He lifted the latch and motioned them inside. "Come on, before the cold gets worse." As they stepped through, he noticed details. Their clothes were dusty, their shoes worn down, their hair wind-whipped from travel. They looked like they hadn't eaten a proper meal in days. "Name's Cole Hartley," he offered, unsure why he suddenly felt nervous. "This is my ranch. I'm Tala," the eldest said softly. She gestured to the younger 2. "This is my sister Nita, and our youngest sister, Sani." Sisters. Traveling 3 alone. In danger. Cole felt his stomach tighten. Whatever forced 3 Apache women to cross the night desert to a stranger's ranch had to be serious. "Let's get you inside," he said. The inside of his ranch house was modest, wooden floors, plain furniture, a cast iron stove, and the faint smell of old leather and pine cleaner. Cole lit an oil lamp, warm light flooding the room. It startled him how strange it felt to have visitors, especially women. Their presence filled the space in a way he hadn't realized he'd been missing. He pulled blankets from a cedar chest. "Wrap up. Desert night gets mean." The women gratefully accepted. Tala's hands shook slightly as she wrapped the blanket around her shoulders. Nita helped Sani, who seemed the weakest of the three. Cole poured coffee, strong, black, only thing he brewed, and handed each of them a mug. They cupped it like a blessing. Sani whispered, "Thank you," voice barely audible. He nodded, not trusting himself to speak. His throat felt dry. Too many years without conversation were catching up to him at once. For a moment, the only sounds were the crackling fire and the soft clink of metal mugs. Cole watched them carefully, not with suspicion, but with concern. The desert could be cruel, but whatever had driven these women to his doorstep was crueler. Finally, Tala looked up, eyes reflecting the lamp's glow. "Mr. Hartley, we didn't come by accident." Cole leaned forward. "Tell me what happened." She hesitated, then took a breath. "We were traveling across tribal land when we realized we were being followed. 3 men, not Apache, not from any nearby town either. Armed, tracking us for reasons we don't understand." Nita added firmly, "We tried to lose them. We crossed the ridge, the dry creek, the canyon, but they kept finding our trail." Sani shivered. "We think they're still out there." Cole's jaw tightened. Tracks, threats, no protection in miles. 3 frightened women at his table. Something in him, something long buried, shifted awake. "Well," he said slowly, voice steady, "you're safe here tonight." It was the first promise he'd made to anyone in years. Outside, the desert wind howled, but inside Hartley Ranch, the silence had finally broken. Night settled heavily over the Hartley Ranch, the kind of deep, desert night where the sky looked endless and black, dotted with cold, distant stars. Inside, the fire crackled in the cast iron stove, spreading warmth through the small living room. Cole Hartley sat across from the 3 Apache sisters, Tala, Nita, and Sani, trying to understand the story they had just shared. The truth was simple, yet dangerous: they were being hunted. Cole leaned back in his wooden chair, arms crossed loosely, studying the 3 women. They sat close together, blankets wrapped tightly around their shoulders, as though the fire alone wasn't enough to warm them. Their faces looked worn, exhausted, frightened, but determined. It stirred something in him. Something protective, something he hadn't felt in years. He cleared his throat, breaking the silence. "You said they were armed," he said. "You sure they weren't from the reservation police? Border Patrol? Anybody official?" Tala shook her head firmly. "No, these men were not officials. They hid their faces. They moved like hunters. And they followed us with purpose, not law." Cole felt a chill that had nothing to do with the cold outside. Nita leaned forward, resting her elbows on her knees. She had sharp eyes, the kind that didn't soften easily. "We tried to lead them away from the villages," she said. "We didn't want to bring trouble to anyone else. That's why we ran toward open land." Cole nodded slowly. "And ended up here." Sani, still looking pale, whispered, "We saw your ranch lights from far away. That gave us hope." Hope. That word hit Cole surprisingly hard. Nobody had looked at him for hope in a long time. He wasn't used to being needed, he wasn't used to being anything other than alone. He stood up, walking toward the window. The desert lay dark and quiet beyond the glass. The moon illuminated faint ridges, sagebrush, and the long stretch of open land leading to the barn. Nothing moved, but Cole knew the desert always looked peaceful, right up until it wasn't. He turned back. "If those men followed you this far," he said, "they might still be out there. They might come looking." Nita stiffened. Sani lowered her gaze. Tala pressed the blanket tighter around herself but met Cole's eyes steadily. "We didn't want to bring danger to your home," she said. Cole shook his head. "Danger finds its way here now and then. That's ranch life. But this was different. This wasn't a stray coyote or a rustler. This was human danger, unpredictable, ruthless." Cole walked toward the stove, poured himself coffee, and then remembered he had guests. "More?" he asked. All 3 nodded gratefully. He felt oddly nervous while refilling their mugs, as if he'd forgotten how to be around people, especially women. His hand even shook a bit, which annoyed him. Tala noticed and smiled gently. "You live alone, Mr. Hartley." He chuckled softly. "Just Cole," he corrected. "And yeah, been that way a while." "How long?" Nita asked bluntly. Cole shrugged, pretending it didn't matter. Enough years that I stopped counting. Tala's gaze softened. Silence can be peaceful, she said. But sometimes silence grows too big. Cole blinked, taken off guard by the accuracy of her words. Dash dash dash. A long quiet settled again, but this one didn't feel awkward. It felt like the house finally had voices it had been waiting for. Eventually, Cole stood. You'll sleep inside tonight, he said. I'll bring extra blankets and pillows. The couch pulls out into a bed. It ain't fancy, but it's warm. Sandy smiled weakly. Warm is all we need. Cole went to the hallway closet and retrieved spare bedding, things he rarely used except when his brother visited once a year. As he set up the couch bed, he realized how unusual this night was. The room felt different, not empty anymore, not hollow. While arranging pillows, he asked, so what exactly happened before you realized those men were chasing you? Tala exchanged a glance with her sisters, as if deciding how much to share. Finally, she spoke slowly. We were traveling to visit family in another part of the reservation, she began. On horseback, by the old trails our grandparents used. But before sunset, we heard movement behind us. At first we thought it was wildlife. Nita continued, then we saw one of the men. He stepped out from behind a stone outcrop. Had a rifle. He didn't say a word, just watched us. Sandy shivered at the memory. We left the trail immediately. Tried to circle around. But every time, we thought we escaped, they appeared again. Cole frowned. Not locals, then. Locals don't stalk women across tribal land. Not with rifles. Exactly, Tala said. Cole rubbed his jaw, feeling the weight of responsibility settling on him. 3 women seeking safety wasn't just kindness, this was a matter of protection. A matter of keeping danger from reaching his door, too. Trouble didn't just disappear when ignored. Suddenly, a distant sound cut through the night. A long, low howl. Coyotes. Sandy flinched, though it was normal desert noise. Cole walked to the window again, scanning the yard. Nothing. But he noticed tracks near the barn gate, fresh ones, barely visible in the moonlight. Boot prints. His heart tightened. Someone had been here recently. The women noticed his change in expression. What is it? Tala asked. Cole hesitated. He didn't want to scare them. But he also wouldn't lie. Tracks outside, he said. Fresh. Nita stood up immediately, alert. Human. Cole nodded. Looks that way. The room fell silent. Even the fire seemed to crackle more quietly. Tala steadied her voice. Then they've found our trail. Cole turned from the window, his face serious but calm. Not tonight, they won't. You're inside. My door's locked. And I got a few things they won't expect. What things? Sandy asked softly. Cole went to the cabinet near the kitchen table and opened it. Inside were 3 rifles, cleaned and oiled, hanging neatly. A shotgun. Several boxes of ammunition. Years of ranch life had made him self-reliant, and well-armed. Nita let out a breath she'd been holding. You're prepared. Cole shrugged. Out here, you have to be. Tala looked at him with something like gratitude. You don't know us, she said. Yet you've helped us more in 1 hour than anyone else has in weeks. Cole swallowed. Compliments weren't something he was used to. You needed help. That's enough. Was it? Or was there something else, something stirring in the quiet chambers of his life? He didn't have time to answer that. He turned back to them. Get some rest. I'll stay up a while, keep an eye out. Tala stood. We can take turns too. You shouldn't watch alone. Cole shook his head. You're exhausted. You sleep. I'll handle tonight. For once, they didn't argue. As the sisters settled into the pull-out bed, Cole grabbed his coat and stepped onto the porch, rifle in hand. The desert wind swept across the land, carrying cold air and the faint smell of sagebrush. He scanned the darkness, senses sharp. Somewhere out there, men were searching. Somewhere out there, danger was inching closer. But tonight, at least, Cole Hartley stood watch, not just over his ranch, but over the 3 women who had unexpectedly awakened something inside him. The night passed slowly, like the desert itself was holding its breath. Cole Hartley stayed on the front porch for hours, boots planted firmly on the old wooden boards, his rifle resting across his lap. The fire from inside flickered through the window behind him, casting a warm glow that made the darkness seem just a little less vast. The 3 Apache sisters slept inside, finally protected, at least for now. Every crackle of brush, every shift of wind, every distant howl pulled Cole's attention sharply across the open land. He wasn't scared. He had faced storms, mountain lions, and desperate thieves over the years. But this time was different. This time, he wasn't just protecting property or cattle. He was protecting people. Just before dawn, the horizon began to thin with faint blue light. Cole felt his shoulders loosen. Dawn always brought clarity. Shadows faded. Threats became visible. He stood, stretching stiff muscles, and went inside. The sisters were still sleeping. Tala curled protectively around Sani, while Nita slept lightly, one hand resting near a knife hidden beneath her pillow. They were survivors. Fighters. He respected that. Cole brewed coffee and stepped back outside with his mug. The moment he scanned the yard, something caught his eye. Tracks. Fresh ones. Boot prints leading toward the back of the ranch, near the barn. His jaw tightened. These weren't his, and they weren't from the sisters. The men had come. Cole walked carefully toward the barn, rifle raised. He listened, slow breaths, slow steps. The morning was completely silent, the kind of silence that felt heavier than noise. When he reached the barn door, he paused. Inside, a faint sound. A shuffle. Cole exhaled, centered himself, then kicked the door open and raised his rifle. Empty. Just hay, feed bags, and dust floating in the light beam. But the footprints didn't lie. They circled around the barn and headed toward the ridge on the east side of the property. Whoever had been there was scouting, watching, planning. Cole returned to the house quickly. When he walked in, Nita was already standing, knife in hand. Tala and Sani were awake too, looking anxious. You saw them, Tala said quietly. It wasn't a question. Cole nodded. Tracks near the barn. They were watching the place. Nita clenched her jaw. Then they'll be back. Cole poured himself a fresh cup of coffee, then one for Tala and Nita. Yeah, he said calmly. They will. Sani looked up at him with fear in her eyes. What do we do? Cole set his mug down and took a slow breath. We make sure they don't step one damn foot in this house. Nita straightened. We want to help. You will, Cole said. But we do this smart. He gathered them around the kitchen table and drew a quick map of the land with a pencil. Barn, creek bed, ridge, mesquite grove. He pointed to each. They'll likely come from the ridge. High ground gives them a view. But they'll try to get close from the mesquite grove, plenty of cover. Tala nodded. We know how to move through the brush. Quietly. Cole gave her a surprised smile. Good. I could use that. By late morning, a tense calm settled over the ranch as they prepared. Cole gave each sister supplies, water, binoculars, and a small handgun each, after making sure they knew how to use them safely. Tala and Nita handled the weapons with practiced confidence. Sani was hesitant but steady. They positioned themselves carefully. Tala at the creek bed, Nita behind the grove, Sani near the house with a whistle to alert everyone if anything went wrong. Cole kept watch from the barn's left corner, where he could see almost the entire yard. Hours passed. The sun climbed high. The desert simmered with heat. Then Cole saw movement. 3 figures, creeping along the ridge. Men, armed, dressed in rough, patched clothing, faces partially covered. They moved slowly, deliberately. Like hunters who thought their prey was unaware. But the prey had teeth today. Cole signaled with a hand gesture, one Tala recognized instantly. She shifted along the creek bed, alert and ready. Nita lowered into position behind the grove, steadying her breathing. The men reached the edge of the ridge. One pointed toward the house. Another scanned the area with binoculars. The third kept his rifle ready. Cole waited. Then the first man stepped into the open. Cole fired a warning shot into the dirt beside his boot. The man froze. Next one lands higher, Cole called out, voice booming across the land. The 3 men turned toward him, startled. Nita shouted from behind them, voice sharp as an arrow, drop your weapons. Tala stood, rifle ready, from the creek bed. You are on private land. Sani blew the whistle once, short, clear, intimidation amplified. Cole stepped forward, rifle leveled. You followed 3 women across miles of land. You watched my home last night. That ends now. The men looked at each other, realizing they were surrounded. You don't want trouble, old man, one of them growled. Cole's voice dropped low. Son, you walked onto the wrong ranch. He fired again, this time hitting the man's hat clean off. That settled it. The men dropped their weapons. They backed away slowly, hands lifted, eyes darting nervously toward Tala and Nita, both women holding their ground with unwavering fierceness. You come back, Cole warned, you won't walk away next time. The men left quickly, disappearing toward the distant hills until they were nothing more than shadows swallowed by the desert. When the danger cleared, Cole approached the sisters. Sandy rushed to him first, relief flooding her face. "You scared them off," she said. Cole shook his head. "We scared them off. You three held your ground." Nita smirked. They didn't expect ranchers and Apache women working together. Tala placed a hand over her heart. "You saved our lives, Cole Hartley." Cole felt something warm settle in his chest, something he hadn't felt in years. "You saved mine right back," he said softly. And he meant it. Not from physical danger. From loneliness. The days that followed brought peace, and unexpected comfort. The sisters stayed to help around the ranch while preparing to return home. They mended fences with Cole, cooked meals with him, laughed with him. His quiet house no longer felt empty, it felt alive. Sandy brought color and warmth to the kitchen. Nita helped in the pastures like she was born to ride. Tala talked with Cole in the evenings, long, meaningful conversations he didn't realize he needed. One night, as the sky glowed with desert stars, Tala said gently, "Your silence is not a prison anymore." Cole exhaled deeply. "Guess it never was," he said. "Just didn't know what I was missing." The sisters smiled at him with genuine affection. When they finally prepared to leave, Cole saddled their horses and stood beside the gate, the same gate where he first met them. "Come back anytime," he said. Tala leaned toward him, eyes warm. "We will, Cole. You gave us safety. And a home. Even if it was just for a little while." As they rode off across the plains, Cole watched until they became specks in the golden dust. The ranch felt quiet again. But not empty. Never empty again. Because some silences aren't lonely. Some are peaceful. And Cole Hartley had finally found the difference.